The session is called What's with Andy, and it will be Andy Griffiths with us, talking about himself, his life, and his work. Andy Griffiths is a best-selling children's author from Australia, and his books have been hugely successful internationally and have won numerous awards. He's a passionate advocate for literacy, and he's joining us from Melbourne, Australia. Welcome, Andy, and thank you for joining us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here or there or wherever I am in cyber world. And here in Melbourne, I'm in the writing room of our 143 Story Treehouse. And this is the room I come to get inspiration, to where I put all my toys and odd things that I find around in my travels. And I get ideas from anywhere. And today I thought I would take you for a guided tour through our treehouse, tell you what it is, how it came to be, and show you the many weird and wonderful things that Terry and Jill and I create when we're doing the books. So I'm going to start with a short PowerPoint presentation, and then we'll throw to questions. And I'm really looking forward to talking with you and interacting. But for anyone who doesn't know anything about the treehouse, this is what we'll now do. So let's see there, a very cluttered desktop, and the beginning of the presentation is so 143 Story Treehouse is our 11th book. We increase the number of stories in the treehouse by 13 every year. So this is number 11. I'll explain why we use 13s in just a moment. But this one's all about going camping and getting away from it all on our camping ground level. We're supposed to have a nice, relaxing holiday, but there's nothing relaxing or ever goes to plan in the treehouse. So I shall show you why. Those are the 11 books there, and I'll take you through one by one. But first, I want to introduce you to the team that actually makes them. And that first person on the left-hand side there is Terry. Terry is the illustrator. We've been working together for 25 years and having a great time. In the books, Terry and Andy are often fighting, but that's purely to make it more fun and for dramatic purposes. It's better if we're hitting each other with bananas or shoving each other's heads into the sun or whatever we're arguing about. Next to him, we have Mr. Big Nose, the book publisher, who demands a book. He huffs and he puffs, and just like the big bad wolf and the three little pigs, he threatens to blow the treehouse down if he doesn't get his book on time. So that's the one of the plots in each book is, will we get the book written? And over, well, you see me there doing the writing, holding the book. And on the far side, you see Jill. Jill is our neighbour. She lives in a house full of animals all by herself and runs an intergalactic animal rescue service. In real life, Jill is my wife, and she is the editor of all the books. So she is a vital member of our team. In real life, that's what we all look like. The real Terry, the real Mr. Big Nose, who, as you will probably have observed, is not actually a man. Claire is a woman and does not yell or huff or puff. She is very nice to work with. So you can see we're using little bits of reality, but then exaggerating and often doing the opposite of what the truth is. That's at one of our writing sessions together. And when I was growing up, I loved books, all books, but in particular, I loved the works of Enid Blyton. She was an English fantasy comedy writer And she wrote a series that I really, really liked called The Magic Faraway Tree, where some children found a little door in a tree that led to many magical lands and very interesting people living in that tree, weird and wonderful characters. So that had obviously a big effect on my imagination, and many years later, I think helps to explain a little bit about where the treehouse comes from. Terry, on the other hand, when he was a young boy, loved adventure stories, pirate stories, the famous story Treasure Island. And that's why in the books you'll see a lot of pirates. You'll see Captain Woodenhead, the pirate who not only has a wooden leg, he has a wooden head. So he's using all his childhood reading to bring that to life. And Jill was a voracious reader who loved nothing better and no book more than Pippi Longstocking, the little girl who lives in a house all by herself with a horse strong enough to pick the horse up, and basically does whatever she wants. And so that was a book that influenced Jill. And I think when we write, we blend all of those influences. So there's Pippi becomes Jill, we have pirates, we have fantasy, action, comedy, everything that we loved. And one day, Terry and I were working, and I said to him, can you draw me a really dangerous treehouse, like a treehouse that has a tank full of sharks and no fence? And it's got a bowling alley, and bowling balls are falling out of the tree and landing near people as they walk along. So it was just a silly idea of a dangerous treehouse for another book. And then Terry got drawing, and I started looking for suitable trees to put the treehouse in. So this is partly a process of research where if I'm writing about a tree in a treehouse, I'll look at lots of pictures of trees. And the first tree I found was one that looked this tall. It's one of the biggest trees in the world. And I thought, okay, would that be a good tree for a treehouse? And I think you already know the answer. It's too tall. It's not enough branches, a long way to climb up, a long way to fall down if you have an argument with your illustrator. So then I looked at more trees, and I found this one, which is not ideal for a treehouse either. It's very short, and its branches are all kind of crazy. And so I thought, well, we don't want a tall tree, and we don't want a really short tree. I have another look at another tree. And then I went, oh no, we don't want a bottom tree. They're too smelly. So I ruled that one out straight away. And then I found this tree, an amazing tree with branches. Moreton Bay Fig is the title. We have plenty of those here in Australia, and I just thought that's the kind of tree that you could build an endlessly expanding treehouse in. So just by looking at pictures, I'm filling my mind with possibilities and ideas. Then I looked at tree houses. I discovered you can have very simple tree houses. You can have very elaborate fantasy castle tree houses, something you might find in a fairy tale. I discovered futuristic tree houses that look like, to me, it looks like an eyeball. And that gave me an idea, or that you could have a secret spy level where you're spying on everyone in the forest. No one knows you're there, except for that lady who obviously does know you're there and is pointing out your secret treehouse to everyone. And so that was a treehouse I had never imagined, but when you're looking at pictures, it helps your imagination. This too is another future treehouse that looks to me a little bit like a space rocket. And it's where I got the idea that the tree would take off into space in the 130-story treehouse, just by looking at a picture and going, I wonder if a treehouse could really be a rocket. And so that leads you on a path of imagination. Now, this is the drawing that Terry came up with while I was doing all that research. And he, in fact, drew all these levels, and there was 13 of them. And I said, wow, that's amazing. You've done a 13-story treehouse. And then he said, yeah, but I'm not finished yet. And then he put all the detail in. So that's how he works, from a basic outline, and then fills in the detail. That's how the plots work as well. A simple idea, and then more and more detail as you explore and expand and find out more questions. Then he did a final version, and we ended up with what became our 13-story treehouse, which I said, whoa, that's great. We could live, I want to live in that treehouse. So we'll write a book about living in the treehouse, trying to write a book each year, but not doing so well because there's so many things that can distract you. Room full of pillows, a see-through swimming pool, lemonade fountain, there's the bowling alley down there. So this got us started. And I think, oh yeah, that's the bowling alley. And you'll notice straight away, start trying to create drama between the characters. And that's the day Terry used my head as a bowling ball. And that's my meme saying, Terry, that's my head. And Terry saying, oops, sorry, didn't mean to use your head as a bowling ball, although I think he really did. That's the see-through swimming pool. Once again, Terry is standing on my head. This is Terry feeding the sharks. And often an idea will come, you just think, what's the worst thing that could happen? While you're feeding the sharks, one of the sharks is getting ready to feed on you. This is the secret underground laboratory, which contains a machine that can make small things large, like tiny bananas, turn them into giant bananas. And it can do the opposite, turn giant bananas into tiny bananas. This is the lemonade fountain, where you just lie under it and it knows exactly what flavour of lemonade you want to drink. And this is a marshmallow machine that floats around and fires marshmallows into your mouth whenever you're hungry. So it anticipates your need for marshmallows. And that's us hard at work in the treehouse. Now, as I said, there was many fun levels in that book, and we had a blast writing it. The Australian children really loved it, and they said, can you please do another treehouse book? And we said, okay, maybe what if we add another 13 stories, we can keep the fun going, and those 13 stories will give us new ideas for plots. And so that was how we got to the 26-story treehouse, 13 plus 13. And that forces us to come up with 13 new fun ideas. An anti-gravity chamber where you can float around. That's that giant white egg at the top. What else have we got? Dodgem cars. We've got a maze of doom. Now that's my favourite level. It's a maze so complicated that nobody who's ever gone in has ever come out again. And that's what you would find if you went into that maze. So don't go in the maze. Then we added another 13 to come up with the 39-story treehouse, which, as you can see, another 13 new levels, a boxing elephant, a volcano, a dinosaur petting zoo, and also this roller coaster, which is the most dangerous and exciting roller coaster in the world. You go through fire, you go through water, you go spinning around a million times. And I really love this picture. Terry has done a beautiful job making an impossible roller coaster seem like it's possible. 39 plus 13 equals 52. We fought a lot of vegetables in this book. The vegetables were trying to eat us, so we had to try to eat the vegetables. And then we added another 13. We went time traveling in the 65-story treehouse. We attempted to make a movie in the 78-story treehouse, but it all went horribly wrong when I was left out of the movie. we had to look after Mr. and Mrs. Big Nose's grandchildren in the 91 Story Treehouse. That's us swimming, sailing beneath the sea in a submarine sandwich submarine. 104 had a lot of tooth problems, a lot of sore tooth, and that's us flying on a giant bird off the top of Mount Everest. 117, the story police came after us for telling such silly stories, and Terry told a long and nutty dot story, which eventually exploded all over the book. 130, as I said, was an intergalactic adventure where we had to fight 13 different aliens from all over the planet. And we had a particularly annoying fly annoying us through the entire book. And Terry had laser eyes. Which brings us to the 143 Story Treehouse, which, as I said, is a camping adventure. And you can see from this picture just how many characters we've created, how many things have happened in the treehouse. And we're still going. We're still adding another 13 levels. I think we might do 13 books, which would get us to the 169 Story Treehouse if we're very, very lucky. That's us on our camping adventure, fishing. There's a few too many people on that boat, and the weather has turned very nasty. I think you can probably guess what's going to happen next. That's our cast of thousands again. And yeah, all the books. So whether you've read one or you haven't read any, or you've read them all, you're very welcome to join the Treehouse at any time. And you can start at any book. It's not a story that you need to have read the previous three to understand the next one. Jump in wherever you like and have fun, because that's what it's all about. So I'll open to questions now, and or comments or level ideas. We certainly need those. There you go. That's the end of your tour.
Yeah, hi, Annie. Thank you so much. That was a wildly magical and imaginative ride. And thank you for introducing us to Terry. He seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, he is, but he's really annoying too.
Yes. So I'll throw the floor open for questions.
Hi, Andy.
Hello.
My question is more to do with crafting.
Yep.
So as a children's writer, it's, I know, very important not to talk down to them.
Yep.
And, treat them like friends or equals. And I feel that's more difficult than writing for adults. So what are the kind of golden rules that you keep in mind when you are writing for children?
Great question. And maybe it is more difficult than writing for adults, because as adults, you know what adults want because you are an adult. But we've all been children. And I can remember very vividly what it was like to be 8 or 9 years old, and how I felt when I was reading the books that I loved, and how they sort of transported me, in a very free and imaginative way. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm writing something. I'm sort of referring to my inner 10-year-old reader and saying, would this have excited me when I was 10 years old? And if I answer that honestly, sometimes I'll go, yep, I love flying eyeballs and blobs and blobdrometer. This is great. And other times I'll be going, no, it's getting too complicated, or there's too much talking. I need to speed it up a bit or slow it down. So I'm constantly going backwards and forwards. But the thing that tells me if I'm right is if I'm slightly excited and slightly and laughing, maybe. If I'm with Terry and Jill and we're throwing ideas around and we're excited, it's like we're excited 8 or 9-year-olds. And that tells you that you're on track. If you end up with a difficult problem where the plot's got too complicated and the solution is kind of boring, that tells me I've gone down a wrong track because I'm not personally enjoying it anymore. So I'm using my experience of writing it as much as my inner 10-year-old reading it to tell me if it's good. And if I'm convinced that my 10-year-old would love it and I think it's brilliant, then I can confidently put it forward. And one of the so yeah, I'm not trying to guess what children like. That's a crucial difference. And when I'm writing the book, I'm also not writing it as an adult for children. I'm writing it as a child, as I think my 10-year-old, if he had the skills that I've acquired as a professional adult, if that 10-year-old could use those skills, this is what they would write. So that's quite different from, okay, children, now I'm going to tell you a story and it's going to teach you a lesson about, having good manners. That would be, sort of writing down to the children. As a child, I'm just going, I've got to tell you this story. It was amazing. This flying eyeball came down and picked me up and we were like flying into space and I was like, whoa. And Terry's like, this is great. And Jill's going, where are we going? So I'm not trying to, I just want you to know the story rather than telling it down to you. And also I trust children that they have very good imaginations and you don't need too much detail when you're a child. You can be told, you don't have to do a long 100-word, 200-word description. I got a bit bored with that. I want the story, I want the characters. And that's what Terry does with the pictures. And that's how we use him to take over the role of description. So I don't have to describe the treehouse. Terry shows it. And as a reader, whether you're a child or an adult, you sort of inhale the whole idea through your eyes with very little need to decode the text. This is a very long answer. It's when you start reading, you might remember it's quite hard to read each word. It's, when I was learning, it was the cat sat on the mat. And so that's a lot of effort. And so anything I can do as a writer to make that easier, I might get Terry to draw that cat on the mat, and I might just write one word, cat, and an arrow, and mat, and an arrow to the mat. So anyone can read it very instantly and get that reward. So as we go along, we tell quite a complicated story, but we're doing it with very few words. And that's another key to what we do. And another reason why maybe writing for children is slightly more challenging, because they don't have the vocabulary that you acquire after decades of being a reader. But they're never going to become a reader if they're not enjoying the initial process of reading a story. So, yeah, we're helping them in to that process. And pictures, I still love them. I still read graphic novels and I read my old comics. It's not words versus pictures. You can have both. And I think what we do with Treehouse is a hybrid. We're telling a story in words, but the pictures are doing a lot of that work. I could expand on that just a little bit. Are there any other questions, or am I taking my time with this answer?
I think there is another question.
Okay.
You could elaborate on what you were saying.
Yeah, although I'll just tell you one way I'm doing it is I'm trying to guess what the reader is expecting, and then I'm trying to surprise them. And that's very central to the process. So if I use my trusty props here, a little baby, if it jumps out of the cot and runs down the street, we might be expecting that it would, be in great danger. Perhaps a baby on a street might get run over by a car. But then I would think, okay, that's what the reader might be expecting. What can I do that's not expected? And that's where I'd bring Godzilla in. And I'd say, oh no, the baby ran down the street and it met Godzilla. And then what the reader's already doing, kids as well as adults, are trying to predict the end of the story. You can't help it. You just go, uh-oh, that poor baby, I'm pretty sure that's going to get eaten by the Godzilla. And that would be one outcome, where the Godzilla reaches down and bites the baby, and then the head falls off. Then the head falls off and everything gets chaotic. But I wouldn't do that, because I would think, well, that's what everyone's expecting. What's the opposite to the dinosaur eating the baby? The baby eats the dinosaur. So then I have to do a bit of work as a writer. Okay, how would a baby kill a dinosaur? Maybe with its nappies or diapers. That would be a big smell. That could knock the dinosaur backwards, and then the baby could start eating the dinosaur. So I'm surprising the reader so that they can't go, oh, I knew that was going to happen. What I want them to say is, I didn't know that was going to happen. And as adults, we can fully appreciate that is a very satisfying story when you think, I never saw that happening. Then you can keep the process going, and this is why it takes a long time to write a story. It's because I'll think, what else could happen? Maybe the dinosaur sees the baby and adopts the baby, takes it home and looks after it, raises it as a dinosaur baby. Maybe the baby takes the dinosaur home. The baby adopts the dinosaur. And so that's another track that the story could go down that's not expected. Or maybe they see each other and fall in love and fly through the air, and it's a great romance, and they hug and they get married, and even worse, have children. And then I would start questioning, that's the worst outcome. Then I would say, what would the children look like? And the reason I love props is because I can create new characters by combining them into unexpected forms. So that's one of their children. That's the good-looking one. Or there's this little troublemaker, which involves the head on the baby. And now maybe I'm only just getting going with the story I want to tell. I'm thinking about the first day of school for this creature. It's going to have certain problems adjusting to the schoolyard and adjusting to the rule that you shouldn't eat the other students, or you shouldn't eat the teachers. So you can see what I'm doing the whole time is I'm very aware that the reader is trying to guess where I'm going, and my job is to take them somewhere else. And while I'm doing that, the story is being created in order to do that. So, yeah, that's my process in a nutshell. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. And I can see why your books are popular with adults also as much as with children, because you're taking adults by surprise too.
That's what I want. And I'm very aware that children's books are read by adults often, whether you're in bed or you're a teacher librarian and you're reading it to them. And there's no reason why the adult shouldn't be as involved in the story. And fairy tales, I love fairy tales because they're neither for adults nor children. They're just great little stories. So thank you. That makes me very happy. Thank you.
Hi, Andy. You were talking about your process, right? Writing for children. Children are such discerning readers. And you said you constantly have to be on your toes and you will anticipate what they would be thinking so that you can write the next move in the book. Does the process ever get very exhausting for you? Because I see you write a prolific number of books, Treehouse series. So how do you manage to keep the, keep yourself, energized, keeping this level of energy up, this a high level of energy. And also, do you ever worry about continuation, repetition? Do these doubts ever, kind of creep into your mind when you're writing so much?
Totally. Totally. Yeah. Great questions. I never, my mortal fear is of boring the reader or them saying, oh, you did this in the last book, or I've seen this idea before. That's what I do not want. And I'm tempting fate as we get into the 11th book of the Treehouse.
Yeah, so I was amazed.
So what I'm doing in every book is we're exploring a different thing in every book that we haven't quite done before. So, for instance, in the 78 Story Treehouse, where they're making a movie, Andy gets left out and he feels really sad. And we hadn't really done an emotional plot before. And that's a big thing of when kids are playing together. We used to ban 3 plays with my daughters. We'd call them 3 plays. If there were 3 kids, 2 would inevitably get tight and 1 would get left out and upset. So I wanted to explore that because that's a reality of children's lives. And so that's 78 is as much about the experience of being left out and how do you resolve that as it is about making a movie in the Treehouse. So, and similarly, the 130 is an intergalactic adventure. So it's science fiction. There's others that 26 is a swashbuckling pirate adventure. So we're always setting the bar a little higher for each thing to see if it's something we haven't done. Because if we don't feel that we're slightly out of our comfort zone, we're not going to get the excitement. So I'm setting the bar that high. It's a bit like, if you go to a circus and you see the trapeze artists working with a net, you can still appreciate the tricks, but you think, oh, they're going to be okay. But if you see them without a net, that's where you really step forward and you go, oh my goodness, someone could really get hurt here. And without a net for the writer is this book might not work. And so that's what inspires me to go back over and over and over. And Jill, my wife and editor, is rereading the books almost constantly for a year, making ever more fine changes to them. So that's how we protect ourselves, by putting a massive amount of work. But this room is full of all the things that excited me as a child and that excite me even now. And music. I have an enormous music library because that has always been something that makes me feel a great sense of possibility, makes me feel good, makes punk rock, is partly what I'm doing is trying to translate the energy of the music I love, that kind of energetic anarchy. I want to translate that into words and plots and books. So to answer the first part of your question, it's not hard to maintain the energy. All I have to do is keep listening to the things that I love. We're both back then and now. And staying fit, movement is hugely important. It's something I've always enjoyed. So it's time at the desk, which is sedentary, but then there's running and swimming, and that's now being shown scientifically. I'm very happy that movement is essential to stimulating creativity and so many other things of well-being. Exercise itself is just a big pill, a health pill that cures a lot of problems. So, yeah, if I do feel not excited by a book that I'm working on, that's a sign that I've gone down the wrong track, and I'll have no hesitation getting rid of 3 months worth of work. If I'm not feeling it, then I can't expect the reader will be terribly excited. And to get right back to the start of your question, kids are very discerning, and they have very short attention spans. I'm talking about Australian children, of course. There's a million things to do. Reading your book is not high on anyone's list. So you have to work really hard to come up with a title, a cover, a first line, and a concept that makes it almost impossible for them to not be interested. And once they've started reading, make it impossible for them not to continue reading. So that's I'd never assume that kids want to read. It's my job to interest them and to hold their attention. And yeah, it's a very reader-centric approach. And I think some children's writers, when they start out, don't have that. And they just assume that the kids were dying to hear their long, boring story about whatever it is. I think they get a surprise. And I was lucky, along with Terry, we've made our living for many years in Australia as visiting authors in schools. So we're constantly in front of kids, large groups of kids, and they tell you instantly whether you are interesting them or whether you're boring them. And so we take that into account, even when we're not in front of them. I'll ask the question, if this thing I'm writing, would I be confident to stand up and read it in front of 500 children? And if I'm not confident, then I'll rewrite it until I do, because I still make mistakes. I still will do that. And I'll watch 500 blank faces and I go, this is not as funny as I thought it was. Jill, we've got a problem. And yeah, so constantly testing.
Congratulations. I'm just amazed. And I love your sanctuary. I can even say I'm jealous of this room with your toys and your music and the place you retreat to. So,
well, you can create your own thing just by, when you're walking along, just pick up anything off the street.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, Andy.
Thank you very much. Good luck with the rest of the festival. And thank you all for coming. Thanks.
Thanks.